We will go through the European strategies and the regulation that the European Union put in place to make this system starting changing and then improving the results and contributing to the objectives. So we start from the European Green Deal. What is the European Green Deal? Because this is a very common word, but maybe for the majority of you is not so familiar. It's a strategic plan to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050 by different actions, of course, and aims to transform the European Union in a modern, resource efficient and competitive economy. We decided some key objectives. So the cut for the greenhouse gas emissions to zero by 2050, to promote cleaner energy, sustainable transport, and a circular economy, and to ensure a just transition for all regions and people. To achieve those objectives, apart the commitment at political level, apart the sustainable projects, for example, the European project, all European projects that are directly funded are funded because they are participating into these strategies. European Union decided to have a major role and to create the ground for the sustainable finance. And so try to align private and public investment with the climate goals. To do this, invent or decide to use some tools, in particular the so-called European Union taxonomy, and a plan, which is an investment plan, which is called Investment Europe. And then have measures, have regulations that were able to drive the capital towards green innovation, infrastructure, and social impact. So these strategies, more global, is a political will. They are very specific objectives, but we want to leverage the funding on the finance market and involve citizens, all the economic players alongside the same objectives. So let's see this InvestEU explain. It's a flagship, is an investment program, is managed by the European Investment Bank. He has some key objectives. He supports the green, the digital transition. It promotes the social inclusion and the economic resilience, and it mobilizes public and private investment. The focus areas are sustainability and climate action, innovation and digital transformation, the SMEs support, the small and medium enterprises support in particular, and the social infrastructure and the skills. And to do this, they put in place some money, good money, 350 billion in investment, but also a system of guarantees that help national banks to do the same towards the member states. So the EIB is guaranteeing the risk of some of the products that also national banks are making available on the market. And what is the EU taxonomy, which is another part of the picture? So it was very, very important to avoid by any means the greenwashing, because for years we have been testifying that some of the big industry were calling on project and sustainability, but then they were just faking a little bit with some very minor actions, but without really producing a real impact. So we have this problem of greenwashing, how we can evaluate the impact of the project. And the EU taxonomy is a mean of evaluation of projects that is meant to make a classification and be able to select the real projects that are making impacts. And they are doing this kind of classification under 6 principles. So the projects that are sustained will be in these 6 areas, and they will receive a score during the evaluation to understand which one is more impactful, and so be able to make a choice between the different projects. Which are these 6 areas? Is the climate change mitigation, is the pollution prevention, is the healthy ecosystem, is the climate change adaptation, is the circular economy, and the sustainable use of water and marine resources. So just to make a very clear an example, which kind of project can be sustainable and which one is not sustainable? Well, the sustainable is a project on renewable energy, for example, solar, wind, and hydropower. A sustainable transport might be a project on walking, biking, electric vehicle manufacturing, or also in food and agriculture, engaging in organic farming and reducing food waste by storing and consuming food properly, or resource management, choosing water efficient appliances, planting trees, or opting for products made with recycled material. And we have 1,000 of these kind of projects nowadays that can be funded and are sustainable. What in reverse is not sustainable? Okay, a project on energy and industry with the reliance on fossil fuel. So basically the investment goes to coal, oil, and gas use for energy, which is not sustainable at all. So the European Union will never fund a kind of project like that. Agricultural land use, using excessive amount of pesticides and chemicals, which can harm ecosystems and soil health. A kind of project of investment of a company that want to do this is completely out of the scope, will never get funded by the European Union, or some of the investment or some of the products that are linked to this strategy. Waste, excessive production and consumption of single-use plastics. Okay, this is a very hard battle, but will never be funded such a project like that. Or on the consumption, disposing of non-biodegradable waste like plastic bags and straw. But if we think about just a few years ago, these were projects completely fundable by banks or other institutions, because there was not a real alternative. Now there is an alternative. So one of the major players in Europe is the European Investment Bank, which has as a mission to work for a greener Europe. So for example, they were the green pioneer. The European Investment Bank was the first issuer of green bond in 2007. And then he put on the market an amazing amount of money for green finance. And then he worked for the regulation and for the transparency of the key performing indicator on impact for the project. He's working in different areas and is also working with other global player or global donors like the EIB to try to enlarge this philosophy more at global level, at least for the project, for the objectives that are considered global, like the CO2 emission, for example. Okay, so if you go to the to the website of the EIB, you have a large explanation, a large number of examples of projects that has been already funded. You can localize in different regions of Europe just by curiosity. Go there and see which kind of projects are ongoing or have been already funded. And there are many case studies that are referring to different sector of investment. Another important piece of the picture is this regulation, because we say that we need to measure, we need to have a transparency, we need to avoid greenwashing, we need to be able to identify our instrument very clearly. So this sustainable finance disclosure regulation that was introduced in March 2021 is just for that. So is a regulation that every asset manager or financial advisors bank has to cope with, okay? So this is a regulation for them. It's done for more transparency for investors and consumers, and it helps identify truly sustainable products via greenwashing. And it requires a clear disclosure of sustainability risks and impacts. If you are not complying with the SFDR, then you pay, you have to pay. So there is a very strict control on that. So what is about? There are several articles, and through this regulation, we are able to define the categories of the financial products accordingly with their level of contribution to sustainability. So if a product is under Article 6, it means that there is no focus on sustainability. It's just a traditional one. It's not declaring if there are ESG criteria into account. So it's just a standard financial product. Instead, if this product is responding to the category described in Article 8, it is considered the product light green. So it means that he has some focus in environmental and social features. And also there is a balance. For example, if it is a funds with different kind of product, there is a balance funds with some of them that are focused on ESG. The best ones are in Article 9. So if they are considered the dark green, it means that is completely focused on sustainable investment objectives, and they are impact funds and they are balanced funds. So now we know exactly this classification, and each operators that is selling and buying this kind of financial products need to cope with this regulation. So that's the situation now. We have some tools to shape the sustainable future. We have a political will with the European Green. Then, through this very first political commitment, we decided to create the condition to facilitate the financial market to drive and to facilitate funding towards the objectives to reach the EU Green Deal goal. That's why there is the EU Taxonomy Sustainable Activities to select the project. Now the EIB is using this methodology in each one of the objectives, but also other operators are using the same criteria. Also other banks, national level, or other operators are exactly using the same methodology to select the project. Then we have the SFDR, Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, that is applied to everyone. And then we have the financial institution at European level, which is the European Investment Bank, that is working in this direction.